One of the biggest trends of 2019, I would definitely say, is anxiety disorders. Is definitely having an anxiety disorder. It's very popular. I guess it's the ice bucket challenge of this year, or fidget spinners for Generation Broken. And this is a Vice article, and it's good to see Vice back on track with keeping their finger on the pulse of counterculture and what is really trending. So this is two things meeting together. But, all jokes aside, maybe there is a reason why so many people think they have an anxiety disorder these days, because everything that's sort of pumped into people does kind of breed anxiety. If it's Brexit or the Orange Man or everything is problematic. I mean, it would make you anxious. I mean, you literally don't even know what to say about anything anymore because you're so anxious because you might get, hounded out of town by a bunch of faceless morons who can only write 280 characters at a time. Anyway, horror movies make me less afraid of the world, says Sophia Barrett. Ibaria. Well, she would have a double-barreled surname. That's a little in-joke with a friend of mine as well. When my anxieties creep in, intentionally choosing to be scared grounds me. So maybe here's some advice, some good advice for those of you that are anxious about everything these days, or perhaps are just following a faddy trend. This is Fine is a weekly newsletter from Vice about the personal tactics people use to make the world feel less harrowing. Will there be some good advice in here? That's the question. Let's have a look. I have anxiety, states 45% of people aged 16 to 32. And my most vivid and disturbing fears are about my everyday life. I spend a lot of time imagining catastrophic worst-case scenarios, wondering if my family is dead because no one picked up the phone when I called, or if my boyfriend secretly hates me because of something I said 6 months ago. I do think this is said with tongue-in-cheek, but you can't really tell these days, can you? Life has become just parody. That's why satire is dead. I worry that I'll die in my sleep, and after my death, my internet search history will somehow be made public and everyone will know what kind of porn I watched last. Well, if you're ashamed of watching it, you shouldn't be watching it, should you? Therapy and medication help a lot, though they're not always an option at 2 a.m. when my anxiety feels like a series of nightmare scenarios strung together into a horror movie of my own. Instead, as I discovered almost 20 years ago, you see, you've had anxiety problems for 20 years? I mean, I used to have anxiety issues, but even I got rid of it. I mean, what have you been doing? Anyway, watching scary movies can be surprisingly soothing. When my anxieties creep in, I can imagine myself as a fearless protagonist and feel a sense of calm. I think action films would probably be better if you wanted to imagine yourself as a fearless protagonist rather than, not every protagonist in horror films are fearless. Kind of goes against the whole point of the horror film in the first place, doesn't it? Anyway, the first time I watched Carrie, I shouldn't have been watching Carrie. I was an anxious 10-year-old and the only 5th grader I knew who had gotten a period. My mum wouldn't buy me tampons, only giant maxi pads that made so much noise when I unwrapped them in the bathroom at school that I was too embarrassed to use them. I bled through my shorts a lot and just hoped that no one saw. Well, you were definitely painting quite a picture. For weeks after I watched, I saw Carrie's blood-soaked figure bathed in red light and surrounded by flames every time I closed my eyes. Her rage was terrifying and comforting. A bit like how people, victims fall in love with their abusers, I suppose. Like Carrie's, my body was powerful and special in a way that I didn't ask for and didn't know how to control. Like Carrie, I knew that what it was like to feel horrified by my body and what it could do, to feel blood trickling down my furry leg and into my sock, to feel humiliated and ugly and unclean. You certainly do paint a picture. Her story helped me connect to my everyday horrors from a safe distance. When I picture Carrie, my thoughts quieted and my body relaxed. I think it should be quietened, but you do write for Vice, so it doesn't matter. I don't like slashers, torture porn, or gross out films. It's not really a horror genre, gross out. Instead, I'm drawn to horror movies that allow me to confront my fear and anxiety about death. Well, slashers and torture porn do generally involve a lot of death, I would say. No one dies in Carrie until the very end. Anyway, about death, loneliness, and inadequacy. Alright. Engrossing myself in a narrative that I can start, stop, and look away from at any time grounds me when I feel like I'm losing control of my own. Horror helps me through bigger, deep-seated traumas and disturbing memories too. The body horror drama Contracted came out in 2013, the same year a man I dated sexually assaulted me. In the movie, a young woman watches her entire body physically disintegrate after a man drugs and rapes her at a party. Her skin sheds, her teeth fall out, and she starts shedding maggots. It's completely gross. You said you didn't like gross out films. I don't understand you. And it's never quite clear why any of it's happening. But it was so close to what I feared was happening to me in the months that followed my assault. Despite testing negative for STIs, I was convinced I was infected in some way, that I was being punished, and that I'd lost control of my body. I was certain I was dying. My hair started falling out from stress. You really needed to get to grips with this anxiety thing a long time ago, innit? Anyway, I felt my own shame eating me alive, and as much as I feared what I thought could be happening to my body, I wanted proof that I hadn't imagined what happened to me. I wasn't spontaneously leaking body fluids or molting at work, but part of me wished that I were. I didn't want to admit that my boyfriend could rape me and that nothing would be different, that we'd keep seeing each other and no one would ever see how nasty I felt inside. Okay, let's backtrack a bit. That's all terrible, but I don't know how this film helped you at all. I don't see it. And in terms of advice on how to... Sorry, should we go back a bit? What does it say? This is fine. It's a weekly newsletter from Vice about the personal tactics. So these so-called tactics... This isn't good advice so far. Anyway... Let's keep going. As I sat through Contracted, I felt completely disgusted, but when it was over, my nightmare temporarily ended too. I think from watching that film, you started thinking some weird shit. I don't think it helped. The movie uses extreme physical decay as a metaphor for the same shame many sexual assault survivors feel that literally consumes the main character from within. Now, I have no idea about this film, but I don't like it when people talk about films mad deep when they're not mad deep. I could believe this film not being mad deep, but I'd never seen it, so I can't really comment, can I? But just throwing that out there. It allowed me to imagine my nightmare scenario of physical decay and experience a cathartic relief that my fears of sickness and infection could be replicated with expertly applied prosthetics and special effects makeup. I saw my sense of disembodiment and disgust with body play out to its most horrifying extent and made it through to the other side. Actually, this crazy hoe might have a point. There is this thing I read about... I can't remember who the philosopher was. Who was it? But he used to imagine his death over and over again. Visualize his own death. And visualize himself dying in the most horrendous and, just the most horrendous and awful and painful ways. And it actually teaches you to not be afraid of death and confronting fears. So she's pulling me around again. But I do think but I don't know. Yeah. Okay. I still had all my teeth and nails. I watched my fear of illness, infection, and total loss of bodily control unfold in front of me, and I was okay. I mean, you're getting there to the thing you should be doing, but you should just be, picturing yourself. But okay, all right, okay. I like knowing that deeply fucked up women experiencing deeply fucked up things can make it out at least somewhat alive. and that antagonists who prey on others' shame, abuse, and gendered violence don't always have to win. It's soothing and even relaxing to see a woman get through the scariest possible situations and emerge the last person standing, the final girl. Alright, you're back into fantasy land now. That's not going to help anybody. Carrie's hand will pop out of the grave in the last few seconds of the movie. Okay, unrealistic expectations of what's going to happen to victims is... I don't... You see, like many people these days, you always have me at one point, and I go, yeah, and then you just got to mess it up for yourselves, don't you? Okay, The Shining's Wendy Torrance makes it out of the Overlook Hotel alive. The villain in Jennifer's Body, a man killing bisexual succubus, becomes the hero and assures me once again that I am severely bisexual for hot women with the power to destroy my life and make me like it. You just keep dropping all these clangers. I don't know what's going on. Samantha, the main character in Contracted, is both the victim and the villain, when in the end her mysterious disease turns her into a zombie like a killer. It's not a happy ending, but it's satisfying to watch her weakness turn to rage and ultimately power. Okay, I think you've completely missed the point there. I haven't even seen the fucking film, and I know there's a better point than that. No, I think it's when you don't treat if all the metaphors of this film are what you say they are. I think, you know, if you don't treat the mental scars, if you don't deal with the problem that you have inside, it will turn you into a raging, murderous zombie, as in not a good thing. So, you know, dealing with your inner pain, it doesn't empower, it will empower you, but letting it fuck your life over and turn into a murderous zombie isn't empowering. So I think you've totally missed the point of that film. It does sound more interesting now, though. But you didn't. But I'm gonna have to watch it now, because I don't think you got it from reading that. You didn't get it, did you? Oh dear. You know, we have had quite a bumpy ride, haven't we? Eh? We were in and then we were out. We're up and we're that. You know, we were falling in and out of love. And you and me reading this, right? Many horror films could be triggering to survivors of violence, abuse, and assault. And their formulaic plots and archetypes don't always leave room for nuance. For me, that can be a comfort. I want to see myself as a final girl that survives, gets revenge, and looks insanely hot doing it. That's one of the tropes that I think is terrible. I want to yell at the screen and see how stupid some of my fears look drenched in fake blood and shot on a soundstage. I still think horror movies are scary, which is also the point. I can control my fear and even enjoy it. I remember that I think most people watch horror films to enjoy the fear, isn't it? Like, you know, you're not incredibly special. I remember that I don't have to let my thoughts and fears just happen to me. I can challenge them, embrace them, and learn to laugh at their absurdity. All right, now you've got me back again. Good. But there's a lot of... This is a very yin and yang situation, this article, isn't it? I still go to therapy, take my medications. I change your therapist any medication. Like 20 years of an anxiety disorder, and it has been sorted, is problematic. I'm just saying, you know, I'm nothing special. But like, if I can do it, why the fuck can't you? And enjoy more typical forms of mental health promoting activities like yoga, meditation, and watching Sex and the City reruns. I think that one was a tongue-in-cheek, because that show can only make you hate humanity. But horror movies make my fears feel smaller, fictional, and less threatening, and so more manageable. My anxiety is always waiting around the corner, but I've survived it before, and I'll survive it again. In watching horror movies, I can see how to be the final girl. Okay. Well, mixed messages coming from this. Some of it was very profound and great, and some of it she clearly, missed the point, and some elements is she lost the plot. But the way she described her periods when she was 10 definitely shows that she has a talent for writing horror, for writing body horror, gross out horror that apparently she doesn't like, even though her favourite horror film that she keeps talking about is definitely a gross horror film. But, you know, anyway, for more stories like this, subscribe to This Is Fine. Well, I might have to look deeper into that. But anyway, you know, do you feel less anxious now?